Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. This year's World Mental Health Day has come and gone, but issues arising from it are still resonating, particularly here in Nigeria, where it has been reported that more than 60 million people are presently suffering from varying degrees of advanced mental illness. This would not have come as a surprise to stakeholders in the country's health sector, who say the handwriting has been on the wall for a long time. Their argument being that, just like almost all other essential service sectors of the economy, issues of public health have fallen victim to mindless politics. But our concern this morning will be restricted to steps that could be taken to prevent more Nigerians from undergoing mental health illness challenges. And for a conversation about everything about this subject, we're now being joined by Dr. Sarah Uwa, a medical practitioner of over 10 years of practical experience with interests spanning child health and protection, counseling, and motivational speech. Dr. Uwa is also a member of Mind and Soul Helpers Initiative, a non-governmental organization that concerns itself with educating the public and helping them get through depression, as well as preventing suicide through talk therapy. Welcome to the program, Dr. Uwa.
Thank you very much.
So many issues, but let's start off with World Mental Health Day, which was commemorated yesterday. What are your thoughts on that and how it was marked in Nigeria? What are your thoughts on the level of awareness that has been raised thus far and the particular theme for this year, which was suicide prevention?
Okay, like we know, thank you very much first. Like we know, the World Mental Health Day was commemorated yesterday, which is October 10th. And the theme for this year is suicide prevention. The aim or the objective of this is to raise awareness, to teach people, the public, about mental health issues, and also to sensitize the government for the need to create policies and put in place plans to help improve mental health in Nigeria especially. This is because there are a lot of suicide happening, especially among the youths. And this could be traced down from the background, and primarily it has a result of mental illness or disorders or challenges that have been up for a long time. You see, the youth are exposed to a lot of traumatic life events. When you look through their background and their upbringing, there are a lot of people you could say they are risk factors or they are exposed already. So they are mentally not balanced. The problem we have around here is that a lot of people think that you are only sick when you are physically down or you have pain. They don't see mental health as an entity or the brain as an entity. And as such, you don't really appreciate it until you see people start displaying some symptoms or that are not acceptable generally. That is when they now think something is wrong. However, when a child is growing up, especially the teenage age, is a time when it's full of excitement. Teenagers, they want to experiment. They think this is a time of freedom. However, it also comes with a lot of challenges as well. And many of these challenges has to do with, bearing teenage pressure, some challenges at home that are carried forward, and even challenges at schools. When these challenges become so big in their head, that this voice is so high, many of them cannot really take it, and they just take to suicide as a solution. But we are here to say suicide is not a solution to solving any problem. So when you look at the background of it, World Mental Health Day, are here to create awareness, to tell people that there's something called mental health challenges, and it is an illness. Just like you have hypertension, you have diabetes, people should see it like that. There are some people, and the major problem of this is stigmatization. Many people, when you see somebody misbehaving, because sometimes the way these teenagers show it or people show it is that they take to drugs, they take to alcohol. When you see somebody misbehaving, the first thing I want to come to mind is this person is a write-off, is a non-entity, it does not have a future. They don't think about what the source, what could be causing this, what is this person passing through to be exhibiting this kind of features. Now, when you go back again to the family background, because that is actually where it starts, You see, in some homes, you have preferred children and you have some children who are not as the choice as others. And because of this, they want to give the choice children the best of what they have. Those children who are neglected, they are watching. In their mind, I am not good enough. And they grow up with this. Parents will need to watch this. When they grow up with this, that mindset is there. And that is working on their mental health already. These people, they become risk factors for future. When that child grows up to be, some parents also, they put a too high standard or expectations from their children. They want their children to be the best in school. They want the children to come first in class. They want the children to be best in everything, forgetting that every child has his or her own capacity and what they can do. And every child is gifted in different ways. While some children are doing very well academically, some are doing well in other crafts. Now, as a parent, you need to study your child to know the areas, the strong points, the strength of this child, and try to encourage that child in that area. When your child is not doing well, it's not to castigate the child or to be judgmental. It's a time to encourage the child, to show empathy, to show compassion. You tell the child that, okay, you have not done this right now, but you can do better. I'm sure you can do better. Then you assist the child, then you follow up the child closely. In doing this, you are breeding a child with good, stable mental health. And you will agree with me that once a child is stable mentally and you grow up with those positive things of life, even when you are faced with life traumatic events, which eventually exposes a lot of people to mental illness, that child has the capacity inward to withstand those stress.
And that is extremely important given how terrible the stigma is here in Nigeria. But another problem that we have is also the lack of help that is available. The number of psychiatrists and psychologists that we have in the country. If I'm correct, we have only 130 thereabouts psychiatrists in the country and under 2,000 mental health workers or professionals as a whole in the country, which is extremely low. That's a huge deficit. What are we doing about this? What are professionals in the field doing to push for more professionals in mental health care?
You are very correct in that wise, in the sense that when you go around most of the hospitals, you hardly find a clinical psychologist in most settings. And this is very important, especially in the clinical settings. Every general hospital at least should have a clinical psychologist to help people who are passing through life challenges to come out and reach out to them. Yes, there are some people who can be willing to actually come out, but when the professionals are not available, what do? For the areas where they are available, they may not be affordable. So the health professionals, we are pushing forward that at every general hospitals, we should at least have one clinical psychologist to attend to the mental need of patients, and not just patients, to the populace at large. We should even drive this forward to at least have a psychologist in most organizations, in schools, in most big companies. They should have a psychologist. This is because a lot of people are passing through stress, emotional troubles, and they cannot speak to just anybody. They need a specialist who will be able to tailor their thinking to in a positive way that will help them yield. At the end of the day, it yields more fruit. Because when I am mentally stable, I can be more productive and I will be more efficient. We need to have this mindset in many of these companies or parastatals so that they can help improve their lot. Take, for instance, Lagos State. There are sometimes, for instance, for me, it took me about 2.5 hours to get here because of traffic. Passing through this kind of trouble every day can tilt people who are already at risk to developing some form of mental illness. So it's not far-fetched when you say we have a lot of mental health issues in Nigeria. We are passing through a lot of difficulties. For instance, you see some people on the traffic, they curse. They don't know how to manage their emotions. There's what we call emotional intelligence. While some people are slaves to their emotions, some people, they take charge of their emotions. Those who cannot manage their emotions, once they are faced with any trauma, with any difficulty, with any problems, some problems at homes. Let's take that area. Traumatic divorce, for instance, can tilt somebody to a mental illness when they're constant quarreling at home, eventually leading to divorce. Then some children are verbally and physically abused by their parents. What do you expect from those children? They will grow up with not stable mental health, and as such, they are exposed to suicide at the end of the day.
Can I stop you there, doctor? We need to be, I'm trying to take this in order so we don't lose any of the threads, because it's really important to identify what exactly, let's even start off with that. What constitutes mental illness? What is the difference between behavioral issues and mental illness? How do you then know that, hang on a second, this is going too far?
Okay, first of all, let's just have a background of what the mental health is. A mental health has to do with your psychological, emotional, and physical well-being. When an individual is in such a state that you are aware of who you are and your environment, and you are able to cope with life stresses, you are productive, and you can yield fruit positively in your community or your environment, and you are able to behave in a particular way that is acceptable, generally acceptable ethics-wise in your environment, you have a stable mental health. Now, there are things, I'll go to your questions shortly, but I want us to have the mindset of what a mental health is. Now, for you to be able to maintain such, 3 factors quickly are important. Good sleep, investing in good human relationship, as well as regular exercise. Anything that would fall short of these 3 factors would definitely affect your mental health. Now, when you are affected mentally, there are some symptoms you display. It ranges from mild to severe. And there are various types of mental illness, ranging from anxiety.
Please hold your thoughts, and when we come back from the break, you can tell us the various types of mental illness. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Dr. Sarah Uwa, and we were going to talk about the types of mental health issues.
Types of mental health or issues?
Issues.
Now, that would do with the way they present, because we have various types of mental health, from anxiety disorder to depression to schizophrenia to a lot of it. These are just few of it. Now, when somebody comes up and tells you that he has lost interest, I'm trying to tell you some of the symptoms, and there's loss of interest in formerly preferred activities. I have low moods. They can't get out of the bed easily. They have lost interest in most of their activities and even interest in going to work. Some will tell you that they are adding too much weight. This is because there's increased hunger, taste for hunger. They want to eat and eat. On the other extreme, some, they've lost appetite, and so you could have some who are saying they are losing weight for no just reason. Then some will tell you that they have not been able to sleep, insomnia, they can't sleep, they are restless. There are so many thoughts in their head, while some will sleep too much. Also, some will tell you that they're always thinking of death, issues of death around them, and even suicidal thoughts are beginning to come up. And some would behave weird. Maybe you see a child who is trying to pass a message. Suddenly, a child that has been calm, respectful, and you suddenly see that child becoming like he's a deviant, wanting to break rules. You know, this will give you an insight to the fact that something is wrong somewhere. So as an individual, if you have someone close to you displaying all this, it's not just to look at them and say something is wrong with this person is not acting normal, this person is just being stubborn. No, it's a time to stop, take a minute, and look at that person a second time and wonder what could be happening upstairs. what is happening with this person. And that is where we come in to help as individuals. Just communicating politely, showing compassion and empathy with such person can actually calm them. Then most importantly, when you discover that somebody is passing through a mental illness, then you can refer the person to the appropriate channel to either see a clinical psychologist. These people, what they do is just through talk therapy, they can talk the person into behaving positively. And if that doesn't work over a time, they also refer to the psychiatrist who use medicine to also help the individual. This is because we know when you try to look at the origin of mental health, outside the environmental factors which we have been talking about all this while, there's also the biologic factor, which has to do with the neurotransmitters in the brain. When there's a disorder in them, the person is predisposed or could develop a mental illness, and also some genetic factors that it runs in the family. When there are genetic defects, they could develop. So when you look at it in that end, talk therapy and medicine as well, though medicine comes last, can help an individual come back to normal. We need to start seeing mental illness as an entity, as an illness. Some people will tell you when you see some people behaving abnormal, some have taken to drugs, some are taken to alcoholism, they just want to know this stigmatization is a write-off, is a nobody, and they just give up on such people. No, we need to see mental illness as an illness. And they tell the person, behave well, my friend, behave well. You need to act normally. They can't just act normal. You don't tell somebody who has hypertension or diabetic, snap out of it, or tell your BP to be normal. No, you tell them, okay, see a doctor so that they can prescribe drugs for you and you'll be fine. So when we begin to see mental illness as this, as what it really is, part of helping the person is empathy and compassion. Because actually what causes stigmatization is the fact that a lot of people are not educated. They are not aware. And even for those who are educated and aware, they don't have this compassion and empathy. So just giving somebody a hug. That is why part of the mental health day yesterday was the fact that it is said that every 40 seconds, somebody is committing suicide. So there's this 40 seconds action plan that was put in place for that day, that everyone should take your time. Take 40 seconds, call somebody, show them you care, tell somebody I love you, give somebody a hug. Is somebody around you acting abnormal? Refer them to the appropriate quarters. Sometimes you can even go a mile further to follow them or escort them to see a professional. You know, when they sit back and see all this action, they know I am loved, especially for those who have grown up with this idea of I'm not good enough, and they always have this inferiority complex. And you see somebody showing you love, and you see the person showing you concern. It's not just only in giving somebody money that you're showing concern. Expressing love, showing love to somebody can help somebody snap out and eventually get back to good mental health.
Very true. And on the topic of suicide for a second, like you rightly said, someone commits suicide every 40 seconds, and that is atrocious. It's tragic, actually, to use a better word. And of course, as we know, suicide is criminalized in Nigeria, which makes it a huge problem because that just adds to the stigma quite a lot more. How do we start overcoming this, especially as the majority of people that do commit suicide are men? So let's also talk about why men are more likely to commit suicide than women.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, you need to know that men, a lot of times, the weight lies on their shoulder more. Start from the home. You expect that, yes, the woman is supportive, but you expect a lot from the man financially, emotionally, living up to expectations. So when a man, for instance, let's take the home front, a man is not able to provide for his family the necessary need. Of course, he begins to feel inferior. He begins to feel, I'm not worthy. And a lot of times, they won't speak out to their families. They may not even have the means of speaking out to anybody. They just want to end it before it becomes a major shame to them. You find that some people, poverty is also a big challenge. Some men cannot send their children to school. And when you see other people's children going to school, what do you expect this man to do? That's where the government comes in. Good education, free education, as much as possible, so that you take the burden off their shoulders. And also, when you talk of divorce, and it also affects the men, not just the women. So that's why you see that because of the challenges, the expectations you're expecting from the man, either as a father at home or either as the head of any company, there's so much. After leaving the home, he also have other challenges he needs to face in the office. So there's so much resting on him, on the men, and as such, you would say that could account to the fact that a lot of men are committing suicide.
Sorry, to add to that, do we have a national suicide prevention line?
No, I was going to ask about that, whether we have helplines. Do we?
There are some helplines. There's also some non-governmental organizations who are out to help. I can't give you the lines of that right now, but there are some organizations, not the federal government. Not necessarily federal government, but there are non-governmental organizations like the Machi, a non-governmental organization I belong to. What we do is we give help. We have some specialists, also clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, and some people who are trained also to talk to people and help people. Outside helping financially, we also talk to people. When we find anybody, sometimes people even have to call in. There are some numbers they call in. Then you follow the person through. You refer the person to the appropriate quarters and see that the person lands well mentally.
So back to the point that Leila made about men committing suicide. Apart from all the pressures on them, there's a culture of silence. Men often don't have an outlet to express themselves, and they just internalize all their pain, and with often tragic consequences. But you talked about parental pressure. We know about peer pressure with teenagers. You talked about parental pressure and the fact that parents might be inadvertently driving their children to suicide by creating a feeling of worthlessness. Because if your own parent chooses somebody else over you, even if it's another child, that really makes you feel really low. That's a very important point to stress. And all the pressures that parents place on their children, you need to get these grades, you need to behave in a particular way, you need to look a particular way, that also makes a child feel utterly worthless. So we have to stress how striking it is that we are each other's custodian of one another's mental illness. Yeah. The way your friends treat you, the way your parents treat you, the way your government treats you affects your mental health. So a lot of these things are preventable, aren't they?
Of course they are.
Really sad that, so people who do end up committing suicide have been failed along the line somewhere.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But we're going to take a short break at this point and we'll continue the conversation when we return. Please stay with us. We'll be back with Dr. Sarah Uwa. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Dr. Sarah Uwa. Just before the break, I was talking about how we are each one another's custodian where mental illness is concerned. We do have our neighbor's mental health in our hands. If you're horrible to somebody, if you're aggressive or bullying, especially repeatedly, you start to affect that person's mental health. How can people be more conscious of our effect on our neighbor?
Thank you very much. It boils down to awareness and education as well. Just like what we are doing today, we are educating people and teaching them that your actions is not just restricted or affecting you, but it's affecting the person next to you. So you need to be aware and you need to be conscious of it. Just courtesy would help a lot. Let's take it from the home front a little because of the importance of it. You see some children have been verbally abused by their parents. Maybe you ask a child to go and do a particular chore and the child didn't come out well, and the first thing you want to say is, you are good for nothing. You can't do it right, and you compare that child to their mates outside. Can't you see your mate is doing it well? That child looks at my mate and said, some mothers go as far as saying, does that child have 2 heads?
Yes.
And why can't you do the same thing? And the child looks at her and says, well, that's true. Let us know that it is what we put in these children that they grow up with.
Yeah.
They are not born with any particular mindset. They grow up with what they are exposed to in this life. So now when you begin to tell the child you can't do it well, you can't do it right, that child grows up to have an inferiority complex and really will not just be able to do it right until if they are fortunate to meet somebody who will be able to tailor them in the right positive way to this. Now, parents should know your words, your action matters a lot. You see a parent, the child is not coming out first. Some even go as far as, after insulting the children, they go as far as beating them with rods. Some will eat their head. That's causing another mental problem, because when you disrupt the function of the brain, that could cause another problem for that child medically. Now, we need to know that every children, they are gifted in different ways. Child A is different from child B. If child A is thriving in this particular way, look at child B and bring out something in that child. Know that whatever you are sowing in that child, you won't reap immediately. It's for the future purpose. And you, as the parent, you're also going to reap from it, because growing up and seeing your child not mentally stable, I don't think it will be any pleasure to any parent. So when you want to build a good child, talk positive to them. It applies to everybody, not just parents. At your place of work, your colleagues, talk to them politely. Know that even as an employee, when you notice that when you positively talk to your employee or your employees, talking to the employer right now, they are more efficient. They are happy. And when somebody is happy, the person wants to go an extra mile to make sure that whatever job the person is giving comes out well. So let's know that we are not just living as an entity. We are affected. It's like a chain reaction. Once it affects one person, it goes down and comes back to you, who is the causative factor. So we need to be careful what we speak. Let's speak positively. Let's speak words of power, words of hope, words that show empathy, words to encourage people. These are the ways we can promote good mental health. It does not necessarily need to be related to the person blood-wise, but the fact that you have come in contact with somebody. We are here today. We have established a relationship that will last for long. Now, that impression, that relationship, that bond we have formed, if it's a positive one, wherever I go, I want to remember it. And when you tell somebody you are good, you are beautiful, even if the person is not very good, the person wants to work up himself or herself and be good just to meet up that praise. So that is how it mentally affects everyone, including children as well. When you tell your child you are good and you've done this, okay, beautiful, but you can do better, you know. The next time the child wants to do better, not out of pressure, but because I know I can do better. You look at yourself and say, well, I can do better. And the child, gradually improves and do more. In this way, we affect ourselves positively rather than using negative words. Negative words, we think we just say them and we walk away. They are like seeds that are planted in a fertile heart of the children or whoever hears them. You tell me I'm a fool, I go on and on thinking, am I a fool? I'm a fool, I'm a fool. And before you know, I start acting like a fool. And if I don't have the mental capacity to, wage this or balance this or buffer it, it starts affecting me. It says I'm a fool. It says I'm a fool. Okay, I will act like a fool. It said I'm mad. Okay, I'll act like I'm mad. And before you see, people begin to act weird, mental illness all over the place. Let's sell heart love instead of hate, because that will be more productive.
Absolutely. And two of the greatest mental health disorders out there are anxiety and depression. And I wanted to really touch on anxiety because sometimes it's hard for for people to point out when they're actually suffering from anxiety disorder. And of course, that's another mental health illness that comes with some sort of thin line. So are there different types of anxiety? What are the different stages of anxiety? And just the generic information that people really need to know around that particular disorder.
Okay. Anxiety disorder, in fact, it is said that it is the commonest of all mental illness or mental health disorder. And you see it in people who have been exposed to traumatic events. There's what we call post-traumatic attack, and you see it a lot. These people, they are kind of anxious, over-anxious. They have palpitations. They are restless. They are sweaty. And once they are exposed to that stressor or whatever is causing them anxiety, you see them start acting weird. Like you are fidgeting, you are all over the place, you want to run away from the stressor or the thing that is making them anxious. That there are other different forms of anxiety disorders. People who had been exposed to abuse of any kind, especially child abuse, people who have been involved in, people who have been kidnapped in the past, people who had terrible accidents, have witnessed terrible accidents, early parental loss, and all that, they are prone to developing anxiety disorder. So once they see anything, for instance, an accident, they begin to fidget like it's happening again. And they want to run away. And we are all here and nothing is happening, and you just suddenly see somebody trying to run away. It's a mental health disorder, and such person would need help. What to do is to refer them to a clinical psychologist or a psychologist who would talk them and help them gradually out of it. Now, you don't force those kind of people to say, there are some people who say, what is there? There's nothing happening. It's not the person's fault. It's just the mind that has been derailed. What you do is to show empathy and compassion again. When you see them in that state, you can hug them. You can tell them, okay, don't worry. It's not going to happen again. I am here with you. Stand by the person and watch the person calm down again. Then after that, it doesn't just end. They don't think it's been solved. Take the person to the appropriate quarter, because it may happen again in such a way that the person jumps into a danger. So we have really not helped the person if we had not referred the person to the appropriate quarters. Then to help such person also is also to build them emotionally. Help them to see life in a different perspective. That is what we do as a talk therapy. You teach them how to control their emotions, how to calm down, and when they cannot control their emotions, they should seek help. There are different ways people react to different things. There are sometimes when people are faced with some challenges, some people just want to react to everything that comes to their way, while some other person with good emotional intelligence would know that I don't have to react to everything that comes my way. That sometimes you need to keep quiet. That sometimes you need to walk away from anything that will cause you pain. There's a common saying that says that nobody can make you angry unless you allow the person to. So you teach people to be calm in this way. And when they begin to see, nobody can make you afraid. If the life scenario is not there, it's not there. So you teach the person how to calm, how to control their emotions, so that once it's coming, you take a deep breath, for instance, you talk to somebody, I'm scared. There's no harm in it. I'm scared, I have anxiety disorder. Somebody just hold your hands and tell you, it's okay, I'm here with you. That can calm the person and go a long way to help.
I was going to ask you about that, because there's no way of escaping the vagaries of life. We're all going to go through something. We're all going to encounter either like nasty people or like difficult life events. So I was going to ask you, how do you then protect yourself? So you said that talk therapy can teach you certain tools. But what about people who say they cannot afford that investment of talk therapy? How can they access these kinds of resources?
Well, that is where the government comes in. We need to put in place like what the mental health is pushing up for now, that there should be at least a psychologist in every general hospital, because we know that is affordable. And there are also some non-governmental organizations that would be of help. Yes, I can understand the pain of a lot of people that even the psychiatrists and the psychologists that are available, many times they are not affordable, especially by the general populace. It's a pity. It's a pity, I must say. How do we come in? We can help ourselves. What we are doing now, we are training ourselves to some extent. It's always good to know your limits. It can start with you as a person, showing compassion and showing emotions. You can help somebody financially as well. You can also show somebody where to get help. Non-governmental issues, many of them are all over Lagos. Lagos State is trying on that account. So in that wise, we can actually get help. But the government needs to come in. Outside the government, the communities, the church, we can help. The church also, like I keep telling people, you can have a psychologist in the church. People are being traumatized in different ways, and even in the church, if they can't reach it outside, within the church, you can have if you have a psychologist, for instance, you can walk up to them after service and you can talk to them what your pains are, and they can help you out. And many times in those settings, you may not necessarily need to pay because they know that they're just going to help. Even companies, big companies that can afford it, you can get a psychologist in your organization to attend to the mental health of your employees. In such way, you are also helping. Let us not just wait for the government, because we may just wait for a long time before that would happen. So we can start helping ourselves.
I have a follow-up to that. What about cognitive behavioral therapy online? What do you recommend that people just access that on their own, or do you think that that therapy can only be in conjunction or under the training of a professional?
In my opinion, I won't just ask somebody to just read things online. There are so many things online. Many of them, they are not just as true as you see them. And if you can really help yourself, I don't think we'll deteriorate to this level, because there are a lot of things online that you can read. But many times, like I said earlier, people who are passing through this mental illness, especially depression, they can't just help themselves. It's not like they don't know what is good, but they can't help themselves. For instance, somebody knows that I need to stand up and go to work, but you don't have that drive. You don't even have the passion to stand up. So when I read online and it says stand up and do this, how do I do it? So you can see that you need an external help. A psychologist who will tell you, okay, you need to stand up. And they know how to manage this, because there are times when even somebody with mental illness is talking to you. It gets to a point, the person just snaps out. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And as a psychologist, you respect that person's opinion. It's a time to tell the person, it's okay, you've done well thus far. When you are ready to talk, we can start all over. Because there needs to be a commitment. There needs to be an acceptance. The person needs to be involved as well. It's not just that the psychologist is just talking and giving instructions.
Please hold your thoughts, doctor. We'll take another short break and we'll be back with more. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching the morning show here on Arise News, and Dr. Sarah Uwa is still with us in the studio discussing several issues around mental health. Thank you for staying with us. Now, before the break, we were speaking on therapy and online therapy as well. And I'd like you to go on with your point, but also to touch on people who say therapy is not for me. Is that a thing, or is that something of disbelief?
Well, therapy. If you say therapy is not for you, then you need to really understand that, of course, that person is also not mentally stable. In fact, I say we all need therapy at one point or the other, because we're all exposed to a lot of life challenges. Like they say, the doctor at some point needs to see a doctor. Even a clinical psychologist at some point may need to see the colleague. So if you are having a problem and you say, I don't need a therapy, then that is a state of denial, and it's not a good one. It's like somebody who is hypertensive and your BP is hitting the ceiling, and you say, I don't need drugs. There are people like that. And the next minute, they have stroke or they are down. So if you are actually unbalanced and you know something is not right with you, and you are saying, I don't need therapy, then we need to also work on that person, on the need, on seeing the need. You don't force them, because when you force anybody to see a therapist, you won't get anything out of it. Even the clinical psychologist will tell you, they first of all ask you, do you really want to talk to me? Do you want me to help you? Do you think I can? You know, they bring others, because once the person affirms or you allow the person, then the person can actually work on you. So in that state of denial is not a good one. We also need to find a way around. You know, there are some people who have faith in a particular thing in people. You can work around that and help them to come in agreement to having therapy. Even when I'm sad, when I'm grieving, I have loss, I need a therapy to talk to me. So it's not just when I'm acting abnormal. That sometimes I'm pained over a particular issue and I'm finding it difficult to come out of it. We experience it sometimes, and a loved one just come around and reassures you, and you feel better and you can bounce back to work. So you need therapy if you have issues.
So now we've talked about treatment. Let's look beyond treatment at recovery. Is it actually possible to say that you have recovered from a mental illness? And I ask this because of the recent news that came out about the climate change activist, this teenager, Greta Thunberg. And some of her detractors were using the fact that her mother had revealed that she had a history with depression. They were using that to sort of minimize her impact on this climate change crusade that she's on, saying that she's mentally ill. Is it that she was mentally ill in the past or that it continues? I ask this because there's such a stigma attached to it. Because why would anybody's diagnosis be weaponized in that way? So let's talk about recovery and the social stigma that still exists.
Okay. Like I said, mental illness is an illness, and it depends on the severity of it. We have mild to moderate to severe. There are some you can fully recover from. Mild depressions, anxiety disorders, you can actually recover from them completely. However, just like you have some illness, like I keep referring to diabetes and hypertension because that's, you know, we're familiar with those illnesses. You don't just get out of it. They place you on drugs to help maintain your pressure or your blood level over a time, and you are just there maintaining it. So also is it with mental illness. For those severe forms of it, you don't just snap out of it. It takes a long while, some people years of constant visitation to their therapist. You know, sometimes they are high, sometimes they are low. At those low moods, they go back to see their therapist. That is why they shouldn't fail their appointment. They give them appointment sometimes. If you are doing well, it could become once in a month. It could become once in 2 months, depending on your response and how you, like I said, is an illness. The mild ones, you can actually get cured. Like for somebody who have anxiety disorder, maybe is fear to talk on her, constant coming to this place, you know, relating with you and talking on her. After a while, you discover the person, that fear is off it. You know, you've gotten a mastery of it. A mild depression also, yes. But once it's severe, once it's gone to schizophrenia, you know, over time, it's like a maintenance dose. It's there, but they've brought you to a level where you can act and behave normal in an acceptable way, and you can fit into your society, and you are still productive, and you're still doing well.
Yeah. Now let's go back to the horrific statistics that we have of 60 million Nigerians living with a mental health illness one way or another. Now, first of all, do you think that figure is accurate? And I ask this because if we have over 100 million Nigerians living in poverty, there has to always be some sort of direct link between one issue in society and another. And it's likely that most people living in poverty, correct me if I'm wrong, are also going to be more susceptible to a mental health illness. So my first question is this statistic accurate, or do you think the figures are actually higher? And then, of course, the government has a huge responsibility, because that means you have a large percentage of your citizens living with mental health illnesses. What policies do we need to see passed immediately in order for us to actually start reversing this and helping ourselves to save ourselves?
Okay. First of all, I must tell you that I don't have any reason to disbelieve that figure, because it's a research and something they've done. If there's anything at all, I would say maybe the figure should be more, because, not everyone who has mental illness would, of course, present themselves to the appropriate quarters where data will be taken. So if at all I'm adding anything, I would say it should be more. And of course, poverty is one of the causative factors, one of the environmental factors to developing mental illness. Like I said earlier, when you don't have money to carry out your basic needs, there are some people who cannot afford 3 square meals. How do they feel? Parents, how do they watch their children passing through that pain of hunger? Over a time, this becomes a stressor and a traumatic event for them. And you can imagine me sitting and watching my child. I want to feed the child. I know the child needs to eat and I cannot afford it. That's poverty. And of course, over a time, I begin to feel sad. I begin to feel I am worthless. I have failed as a mother. I cannot provide the basic need for my child. And after a while, this continues. It could tilt to mental illness. So poverty is a major challenge, one of the environmental factors that could result or make somebody develop mental illness. How to go about it? Did you ask that?
Government policies that we need to see passed immediately.
Well, government policies, of course, the government needs to put in policies and plans to see how to ease poverty in the country. You go out in Lagos, you see a lot of people on the streets, they are begging. I don't think they really love to beg, but they don't have the means. So if government can put in policies, they can provide the means, they can provide maybe free education, they can provide some form of aids to help these people, maybe a reform centers where you take these people to, rehabilitate them, give them good job. No matter how little it is, if somebody is getting regularly paid, of course, you know that at least I will be able to eat. That would help to alleviate poverty. And I think that is it.
So we do know that really tragic statistics of somebody taking their own lives every 40 seconds. So we can logically assume that some people watching the show today might be going through suicide ideation. What do you have to say to those people?
Okay. First, I need us to know that those who commit suicide, they don't happily do it, and they don't just want to do it, but they've passed through a lot of traumatic life experiences that it gets to a critical point in their life where they feel like, I can't just take it anymore. In fact, it is said that a lot of people who want to commit suicide, at some point in time, that is not their first attempt. They've been trying, and at a point, you get yourself back and go back. At a point, you get yourself, but you get to a critical point, they no longer can take it, and they just take their lives. And it's not restricted to anybody. Not only those who are poor, there are some who are also rich, and they are doing well, you assume they are doing well. Some can even be talking and playing with you, and the next minute you hear that they've gone. So things are happening in people's mind. How do you help yourself? Like I keep telling people, self first. Because before you can help anybody, you need to help yourself. You need to be in a good mental state for you to be able to give help to somebody. You need to appreciate what love is, what it is like to act normal before you can tell somebody to act normal. So what do you do for yourself? First, I would say you should build up your emotional intelligence. It's more important than intelligent quotient. Why do I say so? This is because when you train yourself how to respond to situations, how to respond to stress, you will find out that you get more stable and you are more confident and you are more able to face life challenges and still be yourself. How do you do this? Now, there are sometimes, in as much as you cannot control how people talk to you, either rudely or abusively, but you can control how you react to these people. Now, when you are faced with stressors, challenges, and events that are traumatic to you, the first thing for you to do is to begin to tell yourself that, okay, I don't have to react to this. Be calm, take a deep breath. Some people will say count 10 to 1, and before you do that, you find that you are calm. Or, better still, you walk away from that stress, so you don't have to talk. You find out that by the time you come back and re-examine the whole thing, you are better off not even talking, because that sometimes the way you respond to some certain situations, you aggravate it and you can't tell where it ends up. And you hear some words which are not true sometimes, during exchange of abusive words. People tell you a lot of things that are not true, but if you don't have a stable mind, you take it. So to avoid all that, you walk away or keep calm. At the end of the day, 2 things you are doing for yourself. You are building yourself emotionally and you are maintaining a good, stable head. You are also teaching the person how to behave right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the person may look at himself, what did I just do? No response. Am I a fool? No. Then next time I want to act like her. So you are teaching somebody how to react.
Thank you so much, Doctor.